And Paul, I will go ahead and welcome you to the Wine Crush and apologize all in the same breath. I am from Atlanta, Georgia. I barely speak English, so I apologize to what I did to your last name.
Well, thank you so much. It's great to be part of the show. It's a 12-letter last name, so I go by K.
Okay, thank you. I can handle K. Hey, we do tape occasionally in North Carolina. We're used to Coach K, so at least we can't screw that one up.
There you have it.
All right. Well, we're talking about wine clubs today, and I have to admit, when I opened the show, there are so many wine clubs out there that I think just do a disservice to the general public. I think there's ones out there that just really taint the image of what great people like you do. So I'm delighted to have you on, and I want you to tell our listeners about your club, how it started, and the great history that you have.
Well, thank you so much. You're absolutely correct. What's happened in the industry in the past few years, maybe even 10 years, is that people have gotten into this business thinking it was the million-dollar baby, and their objective was to sell as much wine as fast as they could. And our history is much different. Our business started in 1972 as a result of trying to solve customer wine selection issues when they walked into my dad's wine shop in 1972. And he bought the wine shop in 1969. It became one of the premier wine shops in Southern California in the 70s. And people would come in with a $5 budget, much different than today, and ask for his selections. And so we decided to just choose them at the beginning of the month. And I would deliver them when I first got my license. And we started a small little upstart company, and we'd drive around the neighborhood and deliver the wines. And then we started UPS, and then as we grew, and the internet, of course, took hold, and we're still here today. And it's a testimony to our objective to continue to bring fine wine at a great price that's been pre-selected by somebody in the family, actually.
Especially for our listeners, to really put this into perspective, in 1972, there might have been 240 wineries in California. Maybe back then. So y'all have been at this since basically the whole wine movement started in California for earnest this time. And you have to have the great experience that can offer all your members the best of all worlds. You aren't selling plonk. You're selling great stuff to people. Well,
the fallacy of the wine business is that you have to pay money to get good wine. And the whole process of winemaking is so interesting, and every year it changes because you have to deal with different grapes and different vineyards and different soils, that we're able to taste everything you see in the stores. If you took me to the market with you or your wine shop, I could tell you bottle by bottle, based on the price, which ones are the best values, and that's because we taste everything you see. And that's where the value comes from our selection process. And by the way, we don't charge you any extra for that. We just send you the two wines that we think are the best value for that month. No, and I think it's a good way to approach it. For our listeners, if you decide to type in Wine of the Month Club or Wine Club and you go on the Internet, what I love, you type in Wine of the Month Club, and all of a sudden on the sidebars of anything you're looking at are, advertising from wineries. I wonder what wines they're going to recommend for the Wine of the Month. If you go to the wineofthemonthclub.com, you're not going to see any advertising on that. So, that is correct. Paul, when you look to talk about wine or you look to taste wine, something we've always experienced in this business is we always have to say, sell the book, meaning just because I like it doesn't mean everyone else is going to like it. How do you manage to subjugate your palate from what everyday, day in and day out drinkers like? That's a great question, because everybody says, well, wine is subjective, it's what you like. Well, that's not entirely true. Yes, I cannot please all the palates all the time, so you never pay for a wine you don't like at the Wine of the Month Club. However, many wines have technical flaws, and that's what we look for. We expect to sell you a wine from Sonoma that tastes like a wine from Sonoma. You don't need me to find you Beringers and Mondavis and those kinds of wines, but you want me to find you something that if I say this is a typical Merlot from the Argentina Mendoza region, that's what you want to be able to taste. And then you can decide, well, I don't really care for Merlots from Argentina. I like the ones from Sonoma and Napa, but not Mendoza. And you get a chance now to find your own palate by using our club. I think that's a smart way to do it because you can appeal to people. What's hot right now? What are people calling and saying, Paul, I got to have this from there? Well, it's funny I said Argentina. And today, by the way, today's tasting day. I'm about 50 wines into today, and we've got about 50 more for the rest of the day. Hey, you spit, don't you? Because you sound a whole lot better than I do at barely starting a bottle. That is correct. We do spit it all out, and but don't forget, we taste a lot of junk, by the way, so we want to spit it out. But hey, I was about to say that would be a great slogan for you. We taste the bad wine, so you don't have to. Hey, I like it. All right. Are you going to copyright that? To answer the question directly, we have a lot of interest in Malbecs from Argentina, And Merlot's kind of making a little bit of a comeback ever since it got clobbered from the movie Sideways.
Ugh, I'd like to slap him in the next week.
And what was kind of interesting since you're out that way, there's a little trickle of rosé interest coming from the East Coast.
They are starting to get on board with that. I don't understand why they're doing it at the end of summer because it was perfect for July and August, but I'm ready to see that wine take off.
Good wines, and if you travel Europe, they're used every day at every cafe. And we just can't get over the White Zinfandel mystique.
Oh, none of it. I mean, still in shock. It's funny. I actually had sat down and spoken with some people at Sutter Home and spoken to some people at Behringer. Obviously, those are the big names when it comes to White Zinfandel. And White Zinfandel has actually grown. It's the one varietal they have actually seen an increase on in the last 5 months.
Isn't that interesting? I've not read that yet. But, listen, if it's converting some Scotch drinkers and some vodka drinkers to wine and then we can educate their palate on other wines, it's good for us.
I think it's great for everybody. If you had any advice to give our listeners about joining a wine club or to what to look for, what would be the key point that you would have them look for?
Well, here's what's happened in the industry, and I think it's very important. And there's only a handful of us out there that do business the way we do it. And us being the original, of course, I'd recommend our program. However, the beauty of us is that you can talk to me. If you want to talk to the guy that chose the wine, that sat with the winemaker, that discussed it with the winery, that wrote the newsletter, you can talk to him. You can call me and say, listen, Paul, I didn't think that rosé was that good or that Merlot was that great. What'd you find it was so good? I will take the call and we'll talk about it. We have a passion for wine, and we want to present our customers with the highest level of customer service and the best value in the business. And if we fall short of that, we want to know about it, and you can talk to us about it.
All right, I've got to ask. Kent's going to shoot me. Do you get many of those phone calls? Do people pick up the phone and say, hey, the wine you picked was awful. What were you thinking?
It's funny. I have not those, hopefully. I get a lot of, we were just traveling to Europe, and we tasted this. Can you get this for us? Or, man, that was so good. Can we get some more? But we do have customers call and say, I had a Chardonnay a few months ago that the customer called and says, I just didn't see that. I said, well, you're entitled to that. So let me send you something else that replaces it I think you will like based on what you told me your palate was about. And, of course, I got an email back saying they loved the selection we swapped out for them. So, like I said, I can't please all the palates all the time, but we'll make sure that we find something you like.
Well, I like that, and I like any kind of company that will stand behind their palate. I appreciate. Well, for our listeners, the Wine of the Month Club link will be on the Wine Crush website. And seriously, with all the ones that are popping up out there, I really think you ought to check out this wine club because it is the founder. It is the best out there. Paul, thank you so much for being part of the Crush. And hopefully we can get you back and talk about some other selections next spring.
My pleasure. Anytime, even on Tuesday.
I like the way you think.